Today I will be discussing how far earlier versions of Godzilla would make it in the monsterverse, starting off with the original Gojira. Gojira in the original film was far lower than his current counterpart, only standing a little over 160 feet and not weighing anywhere even remotely close to even the smaller titans in the monsterverse. However, his atomic breath would be quite comparable to 2014 Godzilla's, possibly a bit stronger due to some of his scaling. I am assuming the events of the original Godzilla movie take place in this new monsterverse, with adding 2 Godzillas being in it now. However, the original Godzilla's rampage through Tokyo might alert the actual Godzilla in the monsterverse, which would definitely not go well for the original Gojira. Although his atomic breath might be comparable to 2014 Godzilla, without the Mito's EMP, his atomic breath would have been more comparable to 2019. So, even if you ignore the huge size difference, even ranged attacks, the monsterverse Godzilla is going to take the edge. And if the fight goes to melee, it's not even close. Monsterverse Godzilla would annihilate the original Gojira just for upsetting the natural balance and ignore it. Basically, is annoying him. He also might think that this is a juvenile Godzilla and fear growing to a much larger, possibly rival for him. Showa Godzilla is kind of a different story, though. In terms of power, he can scale to some obscure feats from King Ghidorah, which can be calced to small to large planet levels. Monsterverse Godzilla at 100% should be around a similar level, due to the Hollow Earth feat being 50% of his full power, meaning both of them at their absolute maxes could be around Planet Buster levels. Obviously, Legendary Godzilla is far larger than his Showa counterpart, but the Showa counterpart is a lot faster, as he's regularly dodging light speed and faster attacks, and keeping up with more agilic kaiju, not to mention having more abilities. However, I don't really see Showa Godzilla being able to beat Legendary Godzilla, just because Legendary Godzilla seems to be more durable, and also far more experienced in terms of combat. So, realistically, I think Showa Godzilla would either submit to Legendary Godzilla or just try to ignore him and leave him just basically those two would leave each other alone for the most part. Although if a real fight happened, it could realistically go either way. I'd give the slight edge to Legendary Gojira, but it really, either one could take the win depending on the circumstances. I say Godzilla is where things tend to get a little crazy for the Godzilla franchise in terms of scaling. For starters, Heisei Godzilla is not only an absurdly powerful Godzilla, he's likely the strongest Godzilla. His only real competition being Marvel's Godzilla and Godzilla in Hell, who I personally think he's stronger than both of them by a lot by the time Godzilla vs. Destroyer rolls around. Even before he hits his burning form, he's able to fight Space Godzilla, who not only absorbs millions of supernovas, but can use 4-dimensional attacks and survive black holes effortlessly. Godzilla, even before this, was already around planet to starbuster, just judging by some of the absurd things he's able to do. By the time Godzilla vs. Destroyer rolls around, Destroyer has already basically been confirmed 500 times stronger than Space Godzilla, since Godzilla Jr. was comparable to Argent Destroyer. Argent Destroyer was considered around the same as powerful as Space Godzilla, since Godzilla Jr. is around the same level as Space Godzilla, according to official statements. That means Destroyer, once he gets his 500 times boost by becoming perfect, Destroyer should be around 500 times stronger than a multi-star to potentially Galaxy Plus Buster. On top of this, Space Godzilla moved at infinite speed throughout the infinite universe of Godzilla, which is confirmed infinite by several statements. And Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Destroyer was comparable to a Big Bang, which would be infinite power. On top of this is infinite heat ray multiplied infinitely with every attack, meaning he's multi-infinite universal. There are statements that could put him even higher than this, and the only edge Legendary Godzilla really has is size, but since monsters like Space Godzilla and Destroyer are nearly the same size as Legendary Godzilla, that doesn't really matter here, because Godzilla is able to fight them and overpower them at points in melee combat. So Heisei Godzilla would annihilate Legendary Godzilla. He'd annihilate the entire monsterverse. Would he, though? Yeah, probably. He's not exactly a nice guy. He would likely take the new Alpha spot and destroy anything that even comes close to rivaling him. Monster Zero would get one-shotted. The new monsters that are about to pop up and the new Empire would also likely get one-shotted without even having a chance to do anything against Heisei Godzilla. And once he goes burning, it would likely spell the end of the entire Monsterverse universe, if he's able to go burning within the Monsterverse, which is likely since Monsterverse governments tend to use nuclear bombs on Godzilla or the Oxygen Destroyer. If the Oxygen Destroyer from Monsterverse was used, it would likely not kill a Heisei Godzilla since he's likely already more durable than Legendary Godzilla. And he's resisted micro-oxygen from Destroya before, although he was definitely taking damage from it. Next we have the Heisei Godzilla's kid, Godzilla Jr., who I've already said should be comparable to Space Godzilla, and by that logic he should be stronger than Legendary Godzilla and the entirety of the monsterverse for that matter. However, I don't see him actively going after other kaiju. However, if Godzilla did challenge him, Godzilla's getting annihilated within like half a second. And then we have Zilla, or the American Godzilla. Zilla would probably just submit to Godzilla. Zilla couldn't do anything to Legendary's Godzilla besides get like the treatment that Zilla got within Final Wars. Zilla Jr., however, would be an actual rival for Legendary Godzilla, depending on how you scale Zilla Jr. or Godzilla Jr. Not the Heisei one, the American one. Godzilla or Zilla Jr. could actually beat Legendary Godzilla. In some scenarios, I see Zilla Jr. as being relatively comparable to Showa Godzilla. However, Zilla Jr. hasn't really scaled to anything on a planetary level, so in terms of raw power, Legendary Godzilla is probably still stronger as well as in durability, but when it comes to agility and melee combat, Zilla Jr. is definitely taking edges there. And then we get to the Millennium era, which is just a whole mess of random Godzillas. Starting off with the original Millennium Godzilla, as well, both of them. There are two that are technically different but look identical. The first of the two, the one that fights Orga in his movie, is definitely not beating Legendary Godzilla. He's strong, but he's not comparable to his counterpart from the later movie. The one who fought Megaguirus can destroy a black hole with a single atomic blast. That already would basically be well above anything Legendary Godzilla's ever shown, so he takes cake there. Then we get the GMK, as well as the Kiryu saga, and I don't really see GMK or Kiryu saga Godzilla defeating Legendary Godzilla. They could definitely put up a fight, but I just don't see it going there in their way, especially GMK Godzilla, who can only really scale to the Guardian monsters who aren't really that strong. You're wondering why I'm not really explaining how they would actually function in Monsterverse, because most of Millennium Godzillas would likely try to go for Alpha right off the bat the second they pop up. Next we have Final Wars Godzilla, who is definitely strong, but not as strong as a lot of people like to hype him up to be. He's still likely a little bit stronger than Legendary Godzilla, just because he is compared to earlier variants of Godzilla, including Heisei Godzilla in some statements. Well, he's definitely not on Heisei's level. He's probably above the rest of Millennium Godzillas, or at the very least, just under 2000 Godzilla, who, again, can destroy black holes. So, Final Wars Godzilla is likely beating Legendary Godzilla. He's also a little bit physically stronger than Legendary Godzilla, despite being a little bit littler. Next, we have what is, in my opinion, one of, if not the weakest variant of Godzilla that's ever existed, and that is Shin Godzilla. His atomic breath is powerful, but it's like a one-shot thing. It's over. He needs to charge for, ever to get back into combat. He's almost as big as Legendary Godzilla, but he moves like a literal turtle. And current Legendary Godzilla is actually bigger. On top of this, he's a mindless monster that's just out to destroy everything for no apparent reason, just because its life is suffering and it wants everything else to suffer too, I guess. Although not weak, he's weak compared to every other Godzilla on this list, including the original Godzilla, who can scale to island and even potentially continent levels with some of the more insane stuff. And much like the original Godzilla, the Legendary Godzilla is likely going to track down Shin Godzilla and murder him right off the bat. Because Shin Godzilla probably doesn't even have the mental capacity to understand what surrendering means. And on top of that, he likely wouldn't surrender even if he did, just because he doesn't really care. His evolution could allow him to rival Legendary Godzilla eventually, but Legendary Godzilla is likely going to obliterate him to just nothing throughout the course of their fight. Plus, if he's killed, it is hinted at that he would explode, which would erase him from everything, just instantly ending his evolution. Plus, on top of all of that, it was confirmed in the Shin Godzilla movie that nukes would have killed Shin Godzilla, meaning Legendary Godzilla, who's far more powerful than any nuclear bomb, could definitely do the same. So for a quick recap, the original Godzilla either submits or dies to Legendary Godzilla. Showa Godzilla either takes this new alpha spot or loses to Legendary Godzilla and likely dies. Heisei Godzilla easily takes the alpha spot from Legendary Godzilla and proceeds to become the new alpha of the monsterverse and annihilate everything in his path. The original Millennium Godzilla likely loses. 2000 Millennium Godzilla easily takes the alpha spot. Kiryu Saga Godzilla puts up a good fight but dies at the hands of legendary Godzilla. GMK Godzilla shares a similar fate to the original Godzilla. Final Wars Godzilla has a similar situation to Showa Godzilla. Zilla, more likely than not, submits to Godzilla. Godzilla Jr. has again, similar situation to Showa Godzilla or Final Wars Godzilla. That's my thoughts on how each of these Godzillas will survive. I'll do a part 2 soon. See you guys later.